Hello, my name is Tom Mueller. I'm the Vice President of Propulsion here at SpaceX, and today I'm going to talk about the Merlin rocket engine. I'll start off by drawing what we call the combustion chamber for the Merlin rocket engine, which is the device that generates the thrust of the engine. And that has, up at the top end of it, the injector where the propellants are injected into the chamber, and they burn to make the combustion, which makes the thrust. This combustion chamber operates at about 1,000 psi, pounds per square inch pressure. And it's fed by a couple of tanks that are on the rocket. And I'll just draw them sort of schematically here. There's a couple tanks up here. And we have liquid oxygen, or LOX as we call it. And this tank's at about 50 psi roughly. And we have the fuel, which is RP1, or rocket propellant 1. Let me show this is sort of liquid in the tank. And it's also at roughly 50 psi. So how do we get from 50 psi in the tanks to 1,000 psi in the chamber? The way you do that is you have what's called a turbo pump. So this is two back-to-back impellers on a single shaft that pump the liquid oxygen, which I'll show a line connecting to the pump here, coming in at low pressure, 50 psi in, and it comes out at high pressure through a valve that we use to turn it on and off, and into the liquid oxygen injector. And we come out of the pump at about 1,400 psi. Same thing on the fuel side. We have a line that comes down here into the pump, and we come out of that pump and through a little valve and into the chamber, and that fuel flows up through channels inside the chamber to cool the chamber, sort of like the water inside your radiator in your car cools the engine in your car. Well, we actually use the fuel to cool the rocket engine, because the combustion temperature is very high inside this chamber. To drive these two pumps, let me show. We come out of this pump at about 1,500 psi with the fuel. And to drive these two pumps, we have what's called a turbine that generates the horsepower to drive it. And the way we get the power for that is we have another little combustor that's called a GG, a gas generator. And that takes a little bit of the fuel and a little bit of the liquid oxygen and burns them. But it burns them fairly fuel rich, so the temperature of that gas is about 1,400 degrees F. Just red hot, but not so hot that it would burn the blades off this turbine. So get a lot of power from it being hot, but not so hot that it would destroy the device. Inside the main chamber, we're actually running very close to optimum temperature. So in here it's about 6,000 degrees F, so much hotter. That's why this cooling jacket is so important to protect it. So we burn at high pressure inside this chamber, and then we come through what's called the throat of the rocket engine, and out the nozzle these hot gases expand and generate the thrust that we use to lift the rocket. And the thrust that we get from this Merlin engine is about 110,000 pounds force of thrust in vacuum when the rocket's at high altitude. And we have a figure of merit called ISP that we use in rocketry, and that's specific impulse, and that's equal to thrust over mass flow rate, or what we call mdot. And my ISP for the Merlin engine is just around just over 300 seconds is what the units is. So if you divide through, that means that the mass flow rate to this engine is about roughly 350 pounds mass per second. So to give you an example, 9 of these Merlin engines are used on the Falcon 9 first stage, and they burn for just under 3 minutes, and in that time they consume just over 500,000 pounds of propellant. So it's a pretty thirsty device here to get into orbit.